Imagine a huge cruise liner, a real floating city full of people, lights, and entertainment, suddenly finds itself in the very center of a 12-point storm. Just yesterday, the passengers were dreaming of a carefree vacation, cocktails by the pool, evening shows, dancing until morning. But in one moment, everything changes. The waves rise higher than multi-story buildings. The hull of the ship begins to creak under the monstrous pressure, and panic grows inside. This is no longer a vacation. This is a fight for survival. Today, we will show you what cruise liners really look like when they face the full, ruthless power of the ocean. Since the sinking of the Titanic, the cruise industry has changed beyond recognition. Modern liners are gigantic engineering structures, real cities on the water, where there is everything. Exquisite restaurants, luxurious spas, Broadway-level theatrical performances, high-tech casinos. Everything is created so that a person feels as comfortable as possible and forgets that they are in the middle of a boundless ocean. But behind this illusion of safety lies a harsh reality. The ocean remains a force that cannot be tamed. It is unpredictable, merciless, and capable of turning even the most modern liner into a toy in its hands in a matter of minutes. Yes, ships are equipped with advanced stabilizers, navigation, and control systems. But against a real storm, they still find themselves vulnerable. When a multi-thousand passenger liner gets into the epicenter of a storm, luxury disappears instantly. Passengers who were recently enjoying their vacation suddenly find themselves in a situation where the main thing is to stay on their feet and stay alive. Chairs and tables begin to slide across the floor, glass partitions shatter, water penetrates inside through broken windows. Everything that seems safe turns into a threat. The crew, trained to act in emergency situations, does everything possible to control what is happening. But even experienced sailors are not immune to the chaos that the elements bring. To understand how dangerous the situation at sea is, sailors use the Beaufort scale, a system created by the British Admiral Sir Francis Beaufort back in the early 19th century. It allows you to estimate the wind strength and the state of the sea on a scale from 0 to 12. 0 is absolute calm, a smooth water surface. But on the other end of the scale, 12 points, is already a hurricane, in which the wind exceeds 73 miles per hour, and the waves reach a height of more than 46 feet. This scale is important not only for specialists. It helps to understand exactly what a person on board a liner can experience. Even modern ships are not omnipotent. Already at 8 points, serious danger begins. The wind accelerates to 40+ miles per hour. The waves reach a height of up to 25 feet. The ship begins to heel sharply, and moving around it becomes extremely difficult. At 10 points, the situation becomes even worse. The wind intensifies to 63 miles per hour. The waves reach 40 feet. At this moment, the vessel may begin to take on water, and passengers are forbidden to leave their cabins. But 12 points is already the extreme point, a hurricane. In such conditions, even the most high-tech liners run the risk of receiving serious damage or losing stability. Sometimes the only way out is evacuation, into lifeboats or by means of helicopters. January 2018. The liner Norwegian Breakaway leaves New York and sets course for the Bahamas. On board are thousands of people expecting a warm vacation, but instead, they are met by a so-called bomb cyclone, one of the most dangerous winter storms. The captain makes the decision not to change the route and to go straight through the storm. Later, this decision will cause a flurry of criticism. The ship finds itself in the epicenter of the elements. Waves up to 40 feet, wind gusts up to 125 miles per hour. People are literally thrown across the decks. Furniture begins to slide. Doors are knocked out, windows crack and shatter, water penetrates inside. The liner turns into an icy trap. It becomes covered with snow and ice, and long icicles hang from the railings. A strong heel knocks people off their feet. They grab onto whatever they can to hold on. Dishes fly off the shelves, sunbeds break under the pressure of the wind. Some passengers are forced to spend the night in the corridors. Their cabins are flooded. Others cannot even leave their rooms due to the severe pitching and nausea. People fall out of beds, suffer injuries, fractures, concussions. The fear is so great that many do not take off their life jackets for several days in a row. Water floods the floors, flows down the ceilings, penetrates into the elevator shafts. The crew tries to stop the streams with improvised means: towels, clothes, blankets. But this is almost useless. The passengers are left without clear information. All they can do is wait, be afraid, and write messages on social networks. A vacation that was supposed to be perfect turns into a real icy hell. The 14th of February, 2005, the liner Grand Voyager leaves Tunis, heading towards Barcelona. Everything was supposed to be perfect. A romantic journey, a festive atmosphere, candlelit dinners, and the feeling of a real fairy tale in the middle of the sea. But instead, the passengers receive one of the most terrifying days of their lives. As soon as the vessel enters the Balearic Sea, it is suddenly covered by a massive storm. Waves crash with a roar onto the bow of the ship, rising up to 52 feet. The impacts are so strong that the windows on the captain's bridge cannot withstand it. The glass shatters and water rushes inside. The electrical system fails, and the ship is literally left without power. Without engines and stabilizers, the Grand Voyager becomes a toy in the hands of the elements. The vessel heels sharply, throwing people and crew members across the decks. Furniture is torn from its places. Debris and glass fly around the rooms. Panic grows with every minute. Passengers huddle in groups, pray, someone cries, someone tries to help others. Many receive injuries. They are knocked off their feet, thrown against walls and interior items. The medical team works to the limit, but resources are lacking. Time drags on, agonizingly long, and the storm does not weaken. And then the captain makes a difficult decision to send a distress signal. 2 rescue vessels are dispatched to help, but because of the raging sea, they cannot get close. Only 24 hours later, the elements begin to let go. The crew manages to start one engine, and the ship slowly, almost at the limit of its capabilities, heads towards the port of Cagliari in Sardinia. When the liner arrives at the port, it becomes clear what it went through. Broken windows, overturned furniture, flooded rooms. Several passengers go to the hospital, but the main thing is, everyone remains alive. And for many, this is already a real miracle. The 3rd of March, 2019, the liner Norwegian Escape barely leaves New York when it finds itself in the epicenter of a massive Atlantic storm. On board are more than 4,000 people, and none of them expected the journey to begin with such a test. Waves crash with force against the hull, causing dull thuds that passengers compare to explosions. The ship vibrates, as if unable to withstand the pressure. At some point, the windows begin to crack and shatter, shards fly around the rooms, and furniture turns into dangerous projectiles. People lose their balance, fall, get injured. The crew does everything possible to keep the situation under control, but the tension is felt everywhere. This is no longer a journey. It is a test of endurance for everyone who is on board. And yet, despite the destructive power of the elements, the liner withstands the blow. There are no casualties. A few passengers receive injuries, but they are not life-threatening. When the storm retreats, the ship continues its journey, and the crew receives well-deserved recognition for their work and endurance in extreme conditions. March 2019. Off the coast of Norway, the cruise liner Viking Sky gets into a situation that could have ended in tragedy. On board are more than 1,300 people. During the storm, a critical failure occurs. The engines suddenly shut down. The vessel loses headway and begins to drift towards the rocky shore. The distance rapidly decreases. The passengers are ordered to put on life jackets and prepare for the worst. People are seasick. Many can barely stay on their feet, clinging to furniture and each other. The ship heels. Objects are torn from their places. Water begins to penetrate inside through the damages. The most terrifying thing is, evacuation is impossible. The lifeboats cannot be lowered because of the storm. The people find themselves locked on board, face to face with the elements. And then, one of the most difficult rescue operations begins. Helicopters, despite the wind and waves, lift the passengers from the ship one by one. Every evacuation is a risk, Every second is worth its weight in gold. In total, 479 people are successfully evacuated. Later, it turns out that the cause of the accident was a low oil level in the engines, because of which the system automatically turned them off at the most inappropriate moment. Many passengers experience severe stress after this. For some, this trip ends not with a vacation, but with a long recovery after the experienced horror. The cruise liner MS Nord-Norge, created for harsh Arctic conditions, is approaching the Norwegian port of Bodø when it suddenly gets into a powerful storm. The wind roars, waves crash against the hull, trying to knock the vessel off course and throw it onto the rocky shore. But at this moment, a person decides everything. The captain, an experienced sailor, maintains absolute calm. He takes control upon himself and begins to literally draw a path through the raging sea. The crew acts cohesively, secures objects, informs passengers, controls the situation. The stabilizers work to their limit, trying to keep the ship in balance. Slowly, meter by meter, the liner approaches the harbor. And finally, the captain carefully brings the vessel into the port and moors it. Applause rings out on board. People realize that they have just witnessed real mastery and courage. But not for everyone does this story end peacefully. After what they have experienced, many passengers decide to terminate the journey. Their vacation is ruined, and the memories of the storm stay with them for a long time as a reminder of how powerful nature is. February 2016. The massive liner Anthem of the Seas, belonging to the Royal Caribbean Company, finds itself in the center of a real media storm after colliding with powerful elements off the coast of North Carolina. On board are more than 6,000 people. The waves reach 30 feet and wind gusts exceed 120 miles per hour. The vessel begins to literally fight for stability. Passengers recall what is happening as chaos. Furniture slides across the cabins, glass shatters, water penetrates inside. People grab onto walls and handrails, trying to hold on. The crew works without stopping, trying to maintain order and safety. But fear has already penetrated every corner of the ship. Videos and photographs quickly spread on the network, causing a wave of discussions about the safety of cruises in conditions of increasingly unpredictable weather. And, it would seem, everything should have ended there. But just a few months later, in September of the same year, the liner again gets into a storm, this time off the coast of Newfoundland. Yes, the conditions were less extreme, but the passengers again feel strong pitching, the heeling of the vessel, and falling objects. The repetition of such situations causes a wave of criticism. Many demand that the company strengthen safety measures. In response, Royal Caribbean representatives state, "The ship is equipped with modern systems, and the crew acts as professionally as possible within the limits of the possible." But for those who found themselves on board, these words already mean little. They remember something completely different: the sound of breaking glass and the feeling that the ground is slipping from under their feet. Late 2021. Cyclone Millennia passes through northern Europe, leaving behind destruction, the strongest winds, and a raging sea. But for the passengers of one ferry in northern Germany, this storm becomes not just news, it bursts right into their cabin. During the crossing on the Elbe River, a huge wave strikes the side of the vessel. The impact turns out to be so powerful that one of the windows cannot withstand it and breaks. Water, along with shards of glass, rushes inside. Panic begins. People try to step away from the flow, take cover from the debris, stay on their feet. The crew acts instantly at this time. They need to urgently close the breach and prevent flooding. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, but the experience leaves a strong impression. A video of this moment flies around the internet, reminding everyone how fragile protection can be, even on a modern vessel. After the incident, discussions begin. Was it worth going out to sea at all under such conditions? The operator company states that the vessel was designed for such loads, and the crew acted strictly according to protocol. But for the passengers, this no longer matters. They saw how the elements literally pierced the boundary between safety and chaos. May 2023. The liner Carnival Sunshine is returning to the port of Charleston after a voyage to the Bahamas. On board are about 3,000 people. The journey is already accompanied by technical problems. But ahead lies something much worse. The vessel gets into a powerful storm system with hurricane-force winds, huge waves, and pouring rain. The next 11 hours become a real ordeal. The ship is thrown from side to side, furniture slides across the decks, glass breaks, water penetrates inside through doors and windows. Passengers fall out of beds, receive injuries, fractures, bruises, concussions. With every minute, the tension grows. People gather in common areas, someone prays, someone puts on life jackets and prepares for the worst. The crew does everything possible to keep the situation under control. But fear's already becoming a part of this night. And only after long hours does the storm begin to weaken. The liner emerges from it damaged, but afloat. When the ship returns to port, many passengers leave it with one decision: never to go on a cruise again. The incident causes a resonance and new conversations about the need to tighten safety standards. The peak of the viewer's choice: a nightmare in a 12-point storm. Sometimes the most terrifying stories are not just tales, but real events that happen suddenly and without warning. In 2019, one of the Russian cruises turns into a real nightmare. The passengers do not even suspect the impending danger. The storm begins suddenly. Huge waves crash against the ship, forcing it to rock to the limit. Furniture begins to move. Objects fall and break. People lose their balance. Panic spreads instantly. Many receive serious injuries. The crew tries to stabilize the situation, introduces emergency measures, fights for control of the vessel. 10 hours of continuous struggle with the elements. 10 hours that, for many, seem like an eternity. And only then does the sea begin to calm down. The vessel stabilizes. The passengers are delivered to a safe place, but this experience stays with them forever. And now a question for you. How would you behave in such a situation? December 2016. The liner Explorer of the Seas, belonging to Royal Caribbean, is moving along the coast of Australia. On board are more than 3,000 people. Everything is going according to plan, but only up to a certain point. The vessel gets into a rare and extremely dangerous weather phenomenon, the so-called perfect storm. Hurricane-force winds and waves, more than 30 feet high, crash against the ship, turning it into an arena of struggle with the elements. But that is only half the trouble. Shortly before this, an outbreak of norovirus, an extremely contagious infection affecting the gastrointestinal tract, flares up on board. Hundreds of passengers and crew members already feel unwell. And now, a storm. The combination of illness and the raging ocean turns the situation into a real hell. The ship rocks, furniture flies around the rooms, dishes break, water penetrates inside. People cannot even get to their feet. Many are locked in their cabins, too weak to go out. In public areas, passengers gather together. Someone prays, someone simply tries to wait out what is happening. The crew, despite their own poor health, continues to work, trying to maintain control. But the medical services are overloaded. Too many victims and sick people at the same time. 24 hours later, the ship finally emerges from the storm and returns to the port of Sydney. But this story leaves a serious resonance. People begin to wonder, how safe are cruises if several factors can so quickly turn a vacation into a disaster? September 2021. The Chinese port city of Weihai witnesses a strange and frightening event. A huge cruise liner, undergoing repairs in a shipyard, suddenly breaks loose from its moorings. Without control, it begins to slowly drift towards the rocky shore. Eyewitnesses watch what is happening with growing horror. Before them is a giant, more than 1,000 feet long and weighing over 100,000 tons, moving to where any collision could end in a catastrophe. The crew tries to regain control of the vessel, but the power of the wind and waves turns out to be stronger. The situation gets out of control, and then the rescue services step in. Tugs and auxiliary vessels are urgently dispatched to the scene. A risky operation begins. They manage to attach cables to the giant, and gradually, its movement slows down, step by step, literally on the verge of the possible. they manage to drag the vessel back to a safe zone. A disaster is averted at the last moment. But this case becomes a reminder. Even a ship standing in port can be defenseless against the elements. February 2016. The ferry MS Epsilon, making a voyage from the French Cherbourg to Dublin, gets into the epicenter of Storm Imogen. Hurricane-force winds, huge waves. All this turns an ordinary journey into an ordeal. The hours drag on agonizingly long. The vessel is thrown from side to side. The passengers cling to whatever they can. Furniture and luggage move across the decks. Dishes break. People suffer from severe seasickness. Inside, fear and tension. Despite the experience of the crew, the ship receives serious damage. Blown out windows, torn off doors, water penetrates inside through damage to the hull. The engines work to the limit, trying to hold the vessel against the elements, and at times, it seems that it simply will not withstand. But after 24 hours of struggle, MS Epsilon still reaches Dublin. The passengers go ashore, many in a state of shock. But the main thing is, they are alive. And at this moment, solid ground under their feet seems like something incredibly valuable. August 2019. The liner Independence of the Seas is standing in Port Canaveral in Florida. It would seem a safe place. But the elements decide otherwise. Without warning, a massive storm begins. Pouring rain, squally wind, even reports of waterspouts. Within a few minutes, the ship is subjected to a serious impact. The passengers hide inside, hear the wind howling, the rain beating against the hull. Outside, debris is flying, and the ship itself begins to rock dangerously on its moorings. Despite everything, the vessel withstands. The damages turn out to be minimal. There are no serious injuries. But this episode shows the main thing. Even in a port, you cannot feel completely safe. December 2019. The liner Carnival Glory approaches the Mexican port of Cozumel, a normal operation, mooring. But the sea intervenes. Strong currents and waves make it difficult to keep the vessel in the right position. Despite the experience of the crew, the ship begins to behave unpredictably, and at some point, a collision occurs. Carnival Glory crashes into another liner of the same company, Carnival Legend, which is already at the pier. 6 people receive minor injuries. They are examined in the medical center. The company assesses the damage and reports. The vessels remain operational. Eyewitnesses note that the weather conditions seriously complicated the maneuver. This case shows, even in a controlled situation, nature can make its own adjustments. Even experienced crews sometimes find themselves in a position where seconds decide everything. The ocean does not forgive mistakes. It does not submit to technology, does not recognize comfort and luxury. Each of these cases is a reminder that even the most modern liners remain merely guests in a world where nature dictates the rules. And perhaps the main question here remains open. Are you ready to go on a journey knowing what the ocean is capable of? Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.